Guys, welcome to the new episode of the First Responder Playbook. It is my pleasure to welcome George Pasansky. He's a recognized leader in operational excellence with a career spanning more than 30 years in performance optimization, executive coaching, and systematic improvement. He has trained and coached over 10,000 professionals across 6 continents and helped Fortune 500 companies and nonprofits alike drive measurable results. He's the founder of Capacity to Care, a nonprofit encouraging super performers to donate their talent, not just their time, to improve outcomes in their communities. Known for his clarity, candor, and hands-on approach, George is now bringing his best practices to readers everywhere with Superformance. George, thanks for joining me tonight.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, George, tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into, executive coaching, talent development, and what led you down that route?
Oh, completely by accident. I, my story, kind of how I ended up where I am, probably goes all the way back to when I joined the military right after college. Didn't have a lot of options in the sense of wonderful career paths. And I really loved my activities with ROTC. And I knew I was going to, join, but I thought I would be a reserve officer and decided that I really wanted to go on active duty and had that opportunity, thankfully, to be able to do that. And it was such a formative set of years for me. And I learned so much from those soldiers. I learned so much about discipline. I learned so much about leadership. And that kind of was a foundation for me that then allowed me to move out of my role as an officer and take on some roles in manufacturing as plant management and kind of supply chain management. And eventually to start working in quality and continuous improvement, and having that experience gave me, this great perspective that I found that I really loved helping people, and that's what I get to do every day. I tell people I've won the life lottery. I get to do what I love every day and have a beautiful family. So very, very
That's
happy.
awesome. I love that. What branch were you in, and then what was your job in the military?
Yeah, yeah. It's a very funny story. I was in the army. I was a member of 2-4 Cav, and it was later kind of reflagged as 3-7 Cav as part of the third ID. I was a chemo, so some people in your audience will know exactly what that is. But I was a chemical officer. I graduated from college with a chemistry degree, and the, uh, the 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 folks that run the RTC program, from day one, told me that I was a marked man, that I was always going to become a chemical officer. And I never really wanted that. I really wanted to be branched infantry or branched armor, something combat arms. But I was very happy to get assigned to a Division Cav squadron. Really exciting, just absolutely wonderful outfit. And through a set of circumstances, I ended up becoming a tank platoon leader. And that was the gift that I was hoping to someday be able to have, is to be able to lead soldiers and learn and understand what that's like. And that was a great experience for me.
That's awesome. I, coming from the first responder world, it's very paramilitaristic.
Yeah.
But a lot of law enforcement guys are veterans as well, and it seems like this theme is pretty common across all of it. Is guys never want to promote. Um, what what changed your mind in that regard? Because I've always been the mindset of you can't really gripe if you don't want to change things. If you don't want to be the person that changes. What
Yeah.
led you down the leadership route?
Yeah, I think it's a great point you're making. That if you continue to do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you got, right? Things are just not going to change. And I think there are people who may not always have the ability. They may not have the time. They may not have the bravery, in all honesty, to sometimes speak up and say things. And those people, I think, your audience, yourself, probably can think of circumstances where they've suffered, that the circumstances that they deal with are really difficult or challenging. The processes that we have to spend time dealing with, especially in the world that your audience lives in, could be dangerous, could be difficult. They're all things that are really challenging. And when we don't speak up, we're accepting that. And that really is kind of the key theme that I really try to help people see is that it's all about changing circumstances. And if we're not willing to change others' circumstances, then we're kind of, sentencing them to live in these very difficult, possibly even dangerous processes. And there's no reason for that. A little voice goes a long way.
Wholeheartedly agree. Um, you know, we often see, especially in the first responder world, you get a title and people think that you're a leader, and those are not necessarily the same thing. Anybody can be a leader, but just because you have rank doesn't necessarily make you a leader, in my
That's
opinion.
absolutely.
Uh, but what defines success as a leader to you?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and it actually goes back to that military story I was telling you. The gunner on my tank who taught me everything. I never went to armor school, and no joke, when I arrived at the motor pool, I was not completely sure which end of the tank went forward because all the gun tubes were over the back deck. So he taught me this, Sergeant Mabry, and it's that if you can't walk away and have this unit still be able to function, you're not leading us. This idea that I have to be involved in every decision, that I have to be able to tell everybody what to do, that I have to be the center of everything that's happening created a dependency. It created a constraint. It created a bottleneck. And everybody was always looking for what the direction was that I wanted to provide. And that immediately limits any type of operation, whether it's manufacturing, first responders, or military. Learning that having standards and having people understand what the standard is, why it's important, and how we can really apply the best practices to be able to achieve the outcomes that we want. And to be able to do that independent of your involvement means that you have a highly trained, highly functioning, and highly successful unit. And that's exactly what a leader should create, something that it doesn't require their participation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've noticed just I guess tomorrow is my 11th year in law enforcement.
Oh,
Um
congratulations.
I got to thinking about that. Tomorrow's 11 years. But there are certain leaders that they always want to be center of attention, or they want to be involved in every decision. They want to micromanage.
Yeah,
That doesn't help the leader themselves, because you're going to overwork yourself, you're going to stress yourself out, you're going to stretch yourself thin. But it also doesn't help your other leaders within the organization, because they're worried about making the wrong decision or going to you to make that decision. And that's part of leadership growth, is getting those middle management types to grow and be able to make those decisions, because at the end of the day, as a leader, you really want to be able to train your replacement for when you're done. And if you don't
exactly.
allow them making decisions, you're not training them to replace you, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and make mistakes that we
Yep.
learn from that. We can do that. Yeah. It's a little bit of a derogatory comment. I hope I don't offend anyone by saying it. But in the military, there was a term that we always used. We called them spotlight rangers. That is, as soon as the lights came on, all of a sudden they were right on it. They were the middle of it. They were the ones that were, kind of performing under that spotlight. And some of it is a little bit of ego, I think, and all of us as leaders have ego, and that's what helps us get out there and say what we believe. So it's not a bad thing, but some of that comes from that. I do think there's a level of maturity that, as we get older, as we recognize that it isn't about us, it's about our team, it's about the development of the people who will become future leaders. That requires a level of maturity that not everybody has, and I hope that they all develop, but they may not all immediately have it. And that really is what I kind of try to focus on in my practice, is coaching and trying to help people see where they are and where they want to go when it comes to being able to lead organizations, being able to lead teams, being able to have excellence in the operations that they run in.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and you touched on it a little bit. Uh, I still feel, in the first responder world at least, that coaching is a new topic. Um,
Yeah.
I'm working on my ICF certification. Um, I've went through some coach training myself,
Yep.
and I talk about it with other first responders, and they don't understand what it is. They think you're just there to give them advice, which is not really what coaching is.
No.
But how did you get involved into coaching, and then how did you start making that more of your profession?
Yeah, I think there's elements of coaching that are just intuitive. They just make sense, and you could kind of naturally gravitate toward assisting someone and helping them be able to learn or do or achieve a particular outcome. Uh, when you see that there's a pattern that you can do to really help people understand a goal and to help them understand the steps that may be necessary to achieve that goal, that we're likely not to achieve, really significant results overnight. They're going to require steps and they're going to require commitment, and being able to kind of show that mirror to somebody to be able to help them see where they are and where they're trying to go is really really essential. And there's a lot of different frameworks that coaches use, and I have found a number that are really really successful. But what I find is the way I may coach an executive, a vice president, or a senior leader in a very large Fortune 500 company is not the same as the coaching that I'm going to provide an operator working a 12-hour shift, uh, because their needs and the way they approach work are so different. So I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I do think what you're doing and what coaches everywhere who have a profession, a commitment to having a discipline and a structured way of doing it is really valuable.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think that it is very much needed to have those conversations with people now, because for so long I feel like in law enforcement specifically, it was, hey, we've always done it this way. We're going to continue doing it this way. There was the whole don't question things. But
Yeah,
if you think about throughout our whole lives, a lot of our best learning is when we're questioning things. And it does not have to be a bad thing to question anything, but in that militaristic, paramilitaristic world, a lot of times it's taken as, back talk, or, you're not listening. When in actuality, you really just want things to maybe run smoother, or hey, there may be a better way to do things.
yeah,
And that's what I try to tell people now. When I manage a shift of, five officers as a supervisor,
yeah,
there's five different personalities on that shift. They may have five different interests in law enforcement, what they want to do, where they want to end up career wise. And I'm doing a disservice to them if I show up and say, hey, we're doing this for 8, 10, 12 hours, and that's all we're doing.
yeah.
Because if you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, are you really doing the public any good? And, I think that we have to start realizing that, hey, if somebody comes to you with a question and says, hey, why are we doing this way? Or, hey, maybe we could do this better. Maybe we should listen. And that's a good thing in leadership. We got to start listening.
I think that's such a great observation. In my book Superperformance, one of the things I really focus on is the idea that there are three kind of almost magic questions that you can ask, and they're really simple. It's simply the what, the how, and the why. And the point you're making, uh, a leader should define the what, should define the outcome. So if we think about your shift, we think about the officers that you're leading, you should be clear about the outcomes that they need to make sure we deliver on: their safety, the public safety, the standards that we have to uphold, the procedures that we have to follow. These are non-negotiable. And you could make an argument that if somebody was saying, hey, I don't think I really need to wear my uniform this way, that is a form of backtalk. Right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah, for sure.
we got to have that standard. And the what's, the deliverables of what we have to sort of achieve is what you really want a leader to be able to do. Now, a good leader will tell you what to do, but a great leader is going to tell you why it's important, because that standard in your uniform that you're kind of thinking maybe is not that important, it establishes the level of professionalism you have as an officer, which is what helps the people respect your command, respect who you are. And being able to know why these deliverables are important really starts help people follow and be able to help achieve those outcomes. Now, the how is the bit that gets everybody a little bit twisted up, because a micromanager is somebody who starts getting involved in the how and starts saying, well, there's a way I want you to do this. Now, like you said, you got 5 different personalities on that shift. And if those 5 can deliver on that professionalism, if they can deliver on those reports, if they can deliver on the things that are needed, um, is it that important how they did it as long as they achieve those standards? Because when I start telling you that this is how I want you to do your work, what everyone does, no matter what level of an organization you are, I've watched vice presidents do this, you start waiting for someone to tell you what to do. Because if I take the initiative, if I start doing things the way I want to do it, someone's going to come and correct me and tell me how they want me to do it. So I'm just going to sit here and wait until someone tells me. And then what ends up happening? We don't get any what, and nothing ends up getting done, and we all get frustrated. So as a leader, let's talk about the what, let's explain the why, and then let's coach our team on the best how, the best way to get to those outcomes. And that's what makes a really well-run operation.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So tell me about the book. You talk about your super performance. You got 8 strategies to reach full potential for yourself, your team, and your organization.
I do.
Um, Tell me about that. Like I encourage. I'm actually going to get a copy of the book myself because I've
Ah,
been doing reviews of
great.
all my guests' books.
Thank
Been
you.
lagging a little bit behind. I'm finishing up my doctorate right now, so I'm kind of lagging behind.
Oh,
But
goodness. Wow.
but
You're busy.
yeah, for sure. But I truly enjoy taking it's a pleasure for me just to have guests on here because I get to learn just as much as my listeners do by having you on here. But,
Yeah.
and so when you guys have books, I love hearing about them because it's another form of taking the information in. So tell my listeners about your super performance and your book.
Yeah, so it's we have the 8 strategies, and it's about really helping you reach your full potential or helping your team reach your full potential. And for those that may be leading an organization like it sounds like you are, being able to even help your organization reach their full potential. And some of the things that we've already talked about are some of those 8 strategies, like the what, how, and why. We also talk about, for example, the golden hour. And the golden hour is where everything goes well. If you think about all of those shifts over, the 11 years that you've, served our community, I'm going to imagine that there were some pretty rough ones, but I'm also going to imagine that there were some pretty good ones, some pretty amazing ones. And what we tend to do as human beings is we tend to focus on the bad ones. We tend to focus on what went wrong and what are we going to do different and what are we going to do better. And there's nothing wrong with that. We certainly always want to learn from our mistakes. But if you think about it, even if you think about like how a child learns, as they're kind of exploring their world, they learn a little bit from their mistakes, but they also learn from their success. When they stand up and walk for the first time, they repeat what helped them move that well the next time. And they're really finding what I call the root cause of success, the things that are helping them succeed. So, for the amount of time we spend kind of wrestling with what went wrong that shift and why did it go so south on us, I also really encourage people to think about what was that great call? What was that great shift? What was that great experience? And asking, not just what was good, but what was the root cause that really, really made it great? And what we find is we often don't even know what it is. And if we don't know what it is, I have a saying that you cannot sustain what you can't explain. So if I can't explain to you what made a great shift, you're not going to have very many great shifts. But that child learning to walk, although they can't talk, they know what helps them get to the cookie. And that's what they're going to do, right? They're going to double down on what's working. And that is exactly what I think organizations can do to help them reach that full potential.
I love that. Um, I kind of want to talk about, you know, performance reviews. It's always been one of those things in law enforcement that it seems like most supervisors go with the compliment sandwich.
Yeah.
And I kind of to the point now that I kind of feel like that's a outdated relic of how to deliver a performance review. And tell me your thoughts on performance reviews and how we can make those better to help people.
Yeah, so in the book, I actually talk about a concept. I call it and strangely enough, for your audience being law enforcement, I call it the prison of expectations. Kind of a weird coincidence for this
Yeah.
evening. But the prison of expectations is this place that the traditional performance review kind of locks us in. And what do I mean by that? Well, I don't want to get a negative review. I'd like to get a positive review, but I know there are things that I can do in my job better. I could, be more successful. I can complete things more rapidly. I can have fewer mistakes. I can do things, in a much better way. But the thing is, and I think we all know people like this, I don't always do that because if I started doing that all the time, what's going to happen? They're always going to
A,
want me to do that great thing, right?
exactly. That's going to be the expectation.
Exactly. So what ends up happening is as a leader, what do you want? You want the best from your team. You want the best from your people. And what ends up happening is if they do give you their best, what's going to end up happening is you're now going to expect that best. And that means that you're going to start bringing some negative comments when they're not doing that well. So they immediately start hedging. They start pulling back and saying, I'm going to do what I know I can successfully, consistently do. So you can't ever hassle me. You can't ever kind of come and tell me that I'm not doing because that's what's expected. That is what I call the prison of expectations. It's what prevents individuals, it prevents teams, prevents organizations from really getting to their full potential. If I wanted to get the most out of the 5 officers that you're leading, I would really encourage them to not always succeed, to try things that they have, kind of the honest intent to be able to do a better way, to do things differently, with some guardrails. We don't want the Wild West, but it's okay to experiment. It's okay to try things. It's okay to stretch yourself to try to achieve something that you may or may not be able to completely get there, but we at least left it on the field. We didn't sit on the bench hoping to score. As a leader, if you let your people be willing to fail and then making sure as a leader, they're learning from that failure. And I think this is true in law enforcement. I actually got recalled in the military back into the reserves during the Kosovo engagement, and I got assigned to a military police battalion. So I'm a chemical officer who spent most of his career as an armor officer who is now, kind of in a military police battalion. So, you
That's
know,
awesome.
completely out of my element. But all of the soldiers that were in that battalion, for the most part, were police officers of some size, shape, or form. So I feel like I really got to know some of that community. And the thing about that, the thing that's happening is they all want to succeed, but they also are in a system that if they don't succeed, where they get marked negatively, it could affect the rest of their career, could affect their future opportunities, affect them, in a whole kinds of ways. So being able to kind of change that system, to be able to kind of think about performance reviews, not as what did you do wrong, but also not as a compliment sandwich, where you're saying all the things you're doing right. It's going to be how much did you go out? How much did you put yourself out there? How many things did you try? And, we always used a system called AAR, the after action review. I think this is kind of common in, your world as well. Um, it really is about that, isn't it? It's about we put it all out there. We left it all in the field. Let's talk about what went well, what we're going to do again next time, what's going to become SOP, what's going to become standard pack out, but also what went wrong and what are we going to try or do differently. If I could be king for the day where I could do anything I want, because I know there's a lot of constraints and policies and politics and things, I would change that performance review system to really be a measure of how much you get out of the AAR. How much did you learn and keep? How much did you learn and correct? And that's what I really want to encourage, because that's going to help you reach that full potential.
Yeah, I agree with you because it seems like at most places your performance review is a check the box of their minimum expectations of where you should be at.
Yeah.
Um, and you actually touched on it. And I was going to get there. Is I love the after action reviews because I think they're so vital in that a lot of times, we'll have a critical incident
Yeah.
and it could have went better. But if you
Yes.
don't debrief and talk about it, how do you know what could have been done better? Or hey, it actually went really well. This is why it went well. This is something maybe we should use moving forward. You get those little nuggets of information if you don't ask.
Yes.
You don't debrief with your people, and that's what I try to tell people that are new supervisors is don't get caught up in doing what you were doing beforehand and saying, hey, I'm just a cop, I'm out here catching bad guys. Care about your people, get involved in these incidents that they're at, make yourself seen, make yourself, like they want your supervisor to show up and back them up and learn about them. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Officers, especially the frontline people, they have career goals just like your supervisor does, or hey, they may want to get in a specialty unit, or hey, I may want to be a canine officer.
We all have
Let them
families to feed.
Yeah, let them get out there and go work traffic, for a day. And hey, you
Yeah.
might mess up something, but let's correct that. Like, let's push you a little bit towards that goal you want to get to instead of just saying, hey, man, I really want you to go patrol neighborhoods all day and stay in there and not stop any cars. You're not really helping him. I mean, you're still going to be seen stopping cars. And so I wholeheartedly agree with what you said.
Yeah.
And those are small things that anybody can do.
It
to
is.
ma-
It's just a change in attitude, right? It's just a change in perspective, thinking of it differently. Brent, the definition of collaboration, like where we are really truly working together, because that a good leader is going to create that environment where we're listening, but we're also learning. That's what we're talking about, right? Is that listening and learning. The definition of collaboration is the ability to speak your mind, to tell, because that's what makes the AAR work. Because if we get in that room and everyone just clams up and doesn't have any, even though everyone in their mind knows that that was really effed up, what just happened, no one's going to talk about it. Well, that's not speaking your mind. That's not giving your voice. But at the same time, as you speak your mind, you've also got to be willing to listen. So when you have a situation where, that subordinate, that young officer is open-minded, isn't, kind of what I call on Mount Stupid, where they are just so early in their career, they think they know everything. If they're not there in that place where they're really saying, okay, I get it. I have so much to learn, and I'm going to take the opportunity to listen to what you have to say. But Sarge, I want you to hear what I feel like I was put in, the situation that I had, because that conversation about my opinion and your perspective, if you're willing to listen to me and I'm willing to listen to you, and you're going to always tell me what you think, and you're always going to tell me what you think, that relationship is the one that is by far the healthiest in any organization, law enforcement, manufacturing, military, whatever it is. And that's, for me, what I had a chance to experience, during my military service, and having the chance of working in really high performing teams.
That's awesome. Um, where can everybody, reach out? Tell them about your website. I know,
Yeah,
you've got, like an email blast of, informational videos.
I do.
Where can they get your book, stuff like that? Because
Yeah.
you have a lot of great concepts, and I want to get that message out there.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, georgepasansky.com is really the central hub for all of our messaging. So all the podcasts, we'll be putting our podcast today on there as well, and all the other podcasts, interviews that I join. We also write a lot, Forbes magazine, Fortune magazine, lots of different articles and places. So all of that content is also all listed and available there. And then we have what we call the deliberate minute, where we broadcast kind of very short videos that are a lot of the things we kind of rolled through tonight, but also a lot of new topics and sometimes even some hot takes on things that are going on in the world. So if you wanted to join that and kind of get that quick debrief, we would love to have you in the mailing list. And then, of course, Super Performance, the 8 strategies to reach your full potential, available at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, really any bookstore. You if it's not on the shelf, if you ask for it, they can absolutely get it for you.
I love it. George, I'm doing one new thing recently on my podcast as I
Mhm.
wrap them up. Um, because I want to truly make this world a better place, even one moment at a time. If
Yeah.
today was your last day on this earth, what was your one word of advice, or something to help make the world a better place?
Yeah, that's a that's a really good one. I think things are a lot better than everyone thinks they are. I think what has helped me be successful more than anything else, and I would tell this to my kids, I tell this to my wife, I tell to anybody that I didn't that I had that chance for that last message, that things are always better than you think they are. That as humans, we always look at the glass half empty. We always look at the problems we have. We always think it's the first world problems. Like how
Yeah,
terrible we've got it. You know, well, we've got food, we've got shelter, we've got friends, we've got family, we've got, income. And yeah, we may have a boss that's a little bit difficult. We may have a job that, needs maybe a little bit more work, but things are a heck of a lot better than most of the places in the world. And, be thankful. I think things are a little better than you think they are.
I agree. George, thank you for joining me tonight. Everybody go check his website out, check his book out, and let's
Thank you.
make our teams perform for the rest of the future. George, thank you. You're always welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much. I genuinely appreciate it.
Absolutely.